And what will you be seeing today?
One for men, please.
X-Men?
No, just men.
Men in Black?
No, the movie just called Men, please.
How about a few good ones?
Are you messing with me?
Or we could do 12 angry ones.
I just need one ticket to the movie Men, please.
I mean, Mystery Men, Monuments Men, Soul Men, Children of Men, Matchstick Men, Of Mice and Men.
Okay, you're gonna make me be that person, aren't you?
Grumpy Old Men?
I need to speak to a manager.
Right, 1 to Alex Garland's Men. There you go.
Thank you. Ma'am?
1 minute, dear. What are we seeing tonight?
Men?
That's a shame.
Oh my God! You know what? I think I'll just have my order delivered to my seat.
Hey, what can I get for you tonight? Men. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Tavern Talk. I'm Philip, and joining me this week is Miss Alisa Kindsfater. Thank you, first and foremost, for being here, for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, and especially this week because I was really hoping and thankful that we have a woman, to talk about Men. We're talking about Alex Garland's Men this week. And it's not exactly like the most, popcorn viewing of entertainments.
Kind of a weird film.
It's pretty challenging work. But first, we'll start kind of fresh there. Alisa, you host or co-host a podcast called Agents of M.A.C.E.
Yes, Agents of M.A.C.E. I host that with Luke Irvin and Drew Donnelly, and we cover everything in the MCU, the TV shows, the movies. This week, we're kind of hopping out of the MCU proper into doing X-Men Origins Wolverine because there's nothing new this week.
No, yeah. I mean, I guess is Miss Marvel the next thing coming out?
Next week we're starting Miss Marvel. We just wrapped up Moon Knight,
right?
And Multiverse of Madness.
Yes, I was really disappointed, I have to say, in myself for not getting my stuff together and being part of the Arkansas Multiverse of Madness thing. I really wanted to kind of join you guys on that one.
So much fun.
I know. I've watched most of it, and I was like, no. I hated not being there. A bunch of friends on there. If you haven't checked that out, check out. I think it's on Luke Irvin's channel, which Luke has been on here before, and Andrew Switman of Art House Garage posted on his channel as well. So definitely check that out. But again, just thank you for taking the time out to be here, and again for this movie specifically. So let's kind of, I guess, get into to Men a little bit. That sounds weird. I'm sorry, but this movie's weird.
Kind of a weird film.
Well, we're going to get into some weird territory here. This is Alex Garland. So if you know anything about him and his style and his storytelling, he directed Ex Machina, Annihilation, but he has also written a lot of movies. He started as a novelist. I think he wrote the Beach novel that Danny Boyle made into a movie, and then wrote 28 Days Later in Sunshine, which Danny Boyle also directed. And he wrote Dread, the one with Carl Urban.
I am the law.
But yeah, and then he started directing his own films. He made a TV show called Devs. I haven't seen that, but I have seen all of the feature films he's directed. Where do you come at Alex Garland from?
I have only seen Annihilation.
Okay.
Having watched, actually just looking at the preview of this, I wasn't surprised that he had a background as a novelist, because when I saw that, I thought there had to be some sort of creepy but also cozy English horror novel that it was based on, and it turns out that is not the case.
No, yeah, and it's yeah, because Annihilation was a novel, I think, and not an original work. This is an original work, and one of the things kind of up front I wanted to talk about with this is that it seems very timely as far as like the Me Too movement. I think the easy thing to say about this movie is that Alex Garland is like, hey, men suck, I know it, even though I am one, and I just want to let you guys know I'm one of the good ones. Like, that's kind of like the takedown I've seen of this movie from people who are like kind of pegging it as like, this is really like on the nose and easy to call. But at the same time, like, he has said he started writing this 10 to 15 years ago and only finished it as of late. And I think maybe what has taken place over the last couple of years maybe inspired some of the finishing touches on this, I guess. But yeah, like you were saying, it takes place mostly in an English countryside. Jessie Buckley, she is, welcomed by Rory Kinnear as Jeffrey, who's a little odd but mostly well-meaning, and then starts to discover the town is filled with other versions of Rory Kinnear, or at least that's how she sees it. And the one thing I kind of wanted to start with was at the end of this, I decided I'm not taking any of this literally.
No.
Like, this is all very metaphorical, very much like folklore, like a cautionary tale that's been passed down, and it's kind of like that type of storytelling. But what was your kind of take on, there's a lot of symbolism. Probably shouldn't take it too literally, but what was your kind of vibe on that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe it was a little bit muddled because of how buried everything is in symbolism. Like you said, we have a lot of like even pagan imagery. It's set in this like very lush countryside, and so there's all this like nature imagery happening as well. And of course we have scene after scene where she's confronting different types of misogyny from these townspeople, Rory Kinnear.
Mustn't do that.
Right.
Except for there's even one woman who's nice to her, but basically says that she thinks that what Harper's perceiving as a threat is a guy who's really harmless.
Right.
And so she's not being believed, or she's trying to explain what's been happening to her. And by the end of the movie, each one of these men has threatened her, attacked her. It's unnerving to watch.
It is. The whole thing is very, even in the early scenes when, she's arriving at this, castle, manor, whatever it is, and it's supposed to be like serene, and she's getting away because she has recently experienced a trauma of her own in her like actual, real life and everything. She's trying to escape and have this, but even Jeffrey, who, like I said earlier, is seems very well intentioned. There's tension in that in their interactions from the beginning.
He stares just a half second too long after he's done saying
That's
something.
That's exactly right. One of the things that was kind of like Jeffrey is like he has a line about damsel in distress. So he's like,
he's the well-meaning.
He's the well-meaning guy who like
the little woman has
sees,
to be taken care of.
Exactly. And then you have the vicar. He sees Harper more as just like this object, or like we come to,
which is weird because like he's a vicar, which is like a priest in the Church of England. They're allowed to like marry and have children and things like that. So I was like, okay, that shouldn't be.
That should, okay. See, I didn't realize that.
But I mean,
ignorance on my
he's
part.
still a man. She's still a woman.
Yeah.
And even though he's like coming to her again, like well-meaning at the beginning. It like slowly like turns, and it kind of starts with like he's got his hand on her knee, like comforting, but then also kind of like not comforting anymore. It's getting a little creepy, and he starts turning it toward what did she do to bring her despair on herself. So totally victim blaming. Yeah,
and the speaking of the despair she has experienced herself, it's her husband is kind of like the role of the man who sees the woman as like something to kind of blame his shortcomings on, or put all of his faults, and like she is the reason for his, like his own conflict.
He's definitely unstable.
Yeah.
And we see in the movie he's not only emotionally manipulative and abusive toward her, he gets physically abusive.
Yeah.
Which is for her is the last straw.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I was just like, I was trying to think of like, he's seemingly like putting all these different men, as representations of how men in the world view women, different perspectives on how they view women. But then it kind of really like leans into the horror aspect of it. And I mean, the movie's been out for a little bit, but I don't think we're going to like say exactly what happens in the third act because you have to see it to believe it. But I was curious to know, I was definitely fascinated by everything that happened. I don't know if I necessarily like interpreted anything that like changed my worldview as it was. Maybe it'll change some people's, but I don't know, like it felt like he was both trying to say something or maybe prove something. I don't know, but at the same time provoke something. And I don't know, did you think in any of those categories, whether it be, you know, what he was trying to say, what he was trying to prove, or what he was trying to provoke, did he get you in any of those areas?
I think he was definitely trying to start a conversation.
Yeah.
As far as the point that he was trying to make, I think that he didn't quite make it.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think that's necessarily a failure of his as a filmmaker. Like, I think that he had very good intentions.
Right.
I just think that he was trying to say too much at a time.
Well, and see, it feels like there's so many layers to this, but at the same time, like his approach to it felt very, like I was surprised how straightforward everything was as far as the storytelling aspect. Like she arrives, she meets these guys, and then it just devolves into this craziness. And I was like, oh, that was more kind of by the numbers than I expected it to be, but like the incidents that happened were kind of like flushed with all these, like there's a lot of imagery of, you know, and I wish I would have researched this and known what it was, but like the two different sides of the thing that's in the church, like it keeps going back to those two. And then the kind of the main Rory Kinnear character has a transformation too. And I don't know if that, like what happens with his physical appearance is what that's meant to represent.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was confusing to me, because it's clearly meant to be some kind of like pagan kind of entity thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, throughout the movie, nature seems to be like an escape for her, and in a lot of different media that represents women like claiming their power and things like that. But here it was taken in kind of a different direction, and so I wasn't totally sure what he was.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I need to do some research.
I know. I do. No, that's interesting though, because the nature aspect is always. It always feels like it's a part of Garland's movies, like in Ex Machina. Oscar Isaac's like, you know, sanctum or whatever you want to call it is like secluded in the woods. And Annihilation, obviously, there's so much green, like, and in this too, and it gives you that feeling of like serenity and everything. And I didn't know if there was kind of a nurture thing, like point to it that was going on with, especially with how things went towards the end, because it just seemed to be like, you know, we keep breeding this mentality type thing.
Yeah, it's normally like the way that we think about like misogynistic actions, outlooks, things like that, is it's deeply rooted in society, which is kind of the opposite of nature.
Right.
But again, that's not totally what we see happening in the film, which of course having some ambiguity and things like that, it's totally fine.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, again, it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what he was trying to say.
Yeah, I you know, I'm completely fine with, you know, people, artists, creators, directors, leaving things open for interpretation. Like, obviously that's the fun of it, and like, you know, art is meant to be debated and that kind of thing. Like, I'm totally fine with that. I just don't want to limit it to, I have to believe that he wasn't just trying to say that, like, you know, men are trash and sorry about that. You know, I feel like there's probably more to it than that, and I do want to like research it more. One thing I did want to ask was what you're going back to interpretation. We talked about how Rory Kinnear plays pretty much every other character in this movie besides Jessie Buckley. And do you think that was because she sees men as being all the same, or that, you know, that men aren't all the same, but she kind of lumps them all together kind of thing? I didn't know. Again, it's something that's up for interpretation, but I wasn't sure. I was interested in what your read on that might be.
I didn't necessarily think that it depended so much on her particular her perspective.
Okay.
I thought that it was I think it was trying to show how, again, all these different forms of misogyny kind of, in the end, are the same. They're like welded together. We've got all these different aspects of it. And again, it could be like well-meaning and things like that, but it's still taking away from women's like independent self-possession.
Yeah, and no matter what, they end up manifesting themselves in similar fashions.
Yeah.
Well, and that is really why I wanted to have a female perspective on this movie, because and it's interesting that Alex Garland kind of took on this, because it does seem like he's trying to he has a lot of female protagonists.
Yeah, as I say, Annihilation was very much a story about women.
Yeah, and I mean, Ex Machina, like Alisa Vikander's AI character is ends up kind of being not the hero, but like you feel the most for her, for her character. And so it's interesting that here again he's placed a female in the lead protagonist role, and is examining these things about how culture and society have cultivated the dynamic of men and women over because I mean, yeah, there's been a lot more conversation about the treatment of women, and certainly in certain industries lately, but that's a conversation that's obviously and a complicated relationship that's been going on for a long time. So again, I'm kind of rambling now, but I'm trying to figure out, I guess I'm trying to get to the bottom of what he was really trying to say, but I guess that's kind of not the point anyway.
I mean, and obviously there's a huge element here of her eyes kind of being opened to all of these things, because it starts with her eating an apple from a tree that is clearly meant to represent the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden she's seeing all this weird stuff. Yeah. And so you've got the difference between that ideology, Judeo-Christian, and also all the pagan stuff going on. And so again, I think that it was just, he was going in a bunch of different directions
right
at the same time.
A lot of ideas, and there's a lot going on here. We'll go a little bit lighter now then, and just talk about some of the highlights of the movie for you. Again, we just walked out of the movie. This is kind of an initial discussion. I'm very kind of phased by the whole thing. But this is largely a two-hander of Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear.
Well, they were both terrific.
Yeah.
I thought that Jessie Buckley's performance was very, she had a lot of like personal gravity, I thought.
Yeah.
She was great at conveying this depression, this trauma that her character is going through. But boy, Rory Kinnear, he just really gets... Oh, he has to do a lot in this movie, and it's like a thankless role. He had to have been cold.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to listen to some of their conversations about how they were executing certain scenes and things like that.
You have to totally trust the person that you're in a scene with if you're doing some of the stuff that they were doing together.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and I mean, Kinnear's definitely got the showier role. I don't want to say flashier. But
no.
He's definitely I would have loved to have seen more scenes where more of the in the bar when they were all interacting with one another. That's always cool. But yeah, Jessie Buckley had to really internalize a lot and do a lot, say a lot without saying it. And I feel like I'm a fan of hers, but I haven't been a huge fan of her choices so far. The Kaufman movie I wasn't super on board with, and was kind of her first big one. I think it was Wild Rose, where she's the country singer.
The one that I've heard of recently that's on my to watch list I haven't gotten to yet is The Lost Daughter that Maggie Gyllenhaal directed.
Yes. Now, see that, her character in that, not a great person. But the movie is probably my favorite thing I had seen her in thus far. And so... she's just kind of got that gravitas where you're kind of pulled to her no matter what situation she's in, and that's why even though some of the movies she's appeared in, she's definitely making interesting choices. I just haven't loved all the films she's done, but I've always been kind of drawn to her performance in them. So I was glad to see her again making interesting choices.
The cinematography was gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean. Again, I kind of expected that, having seen Annihilation.
Yeah, that and the music. I'm glad you brought that up, because I did want that kind of tone setting that Alex Garland does is definitely present here as well.
I would say like if the movie had remained like totally consistent with the way that it was the first half of it, I would have probably given it like 4 stars.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just that second half, which
you have to laugh. You just have to laugh. No.
It wasn't for me necessarily. I get kind of like squeaked out by violence and gore.
Okay.
And so there were a few parts of the movie where I was like, "Ooh,
yeah,
that was not pleasant at all."
No, there are definitely a few wincing, like squirm in your seat moments for sure. But that's a good segue because on Tavern Talk, what we tend to do is do a star rating out of 5 stars. So you said it might have been higher, or given that third act, or not given that third act, but given the third act did happen, what would your out of 5 star initial reaction rating be?
I gave it a 3. It was because like I appreciated it more than I actually enjoyed watching
That's
it.
Exactly.
Like it was interesting, but I can't imagine myself wanting to be like, you know what I really feel like watching right now?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and rewatch Men.
You're not gonna invite friends over to watch Men.
It's not a popcorn movie.
No.
Like you said, you don't. This is not something you want to eat while you watch.
No, definitely not that. Yeah, God, I didn't even think about that. No, yeah, you're not rallying, people and being like, go watch Men, because it's definitely an acquired taste. I think I'm right there with you. I think I'm going to go 3 as well. I really don't know how to rate this movie. I really don't know how I really feel about it. It is very methodically paced, but I was never bored. I was always engaged and intrigued in what was going to happen and where it was going. So there's definitely like an element, like I said, I'm a fan of the Garland work that I have seen, and so I really was engaged with it and intrigued, but I don't know if it's something you necessarily enjoy, like you said.
Yeah, I was like, I wanted to know where it was going, and then it went, and I was like,
Kind of a weird film.
yeah, that's exactly right. I understand why it's been so polarizing so far. But no, that's a good place as any to kind of wrap this up. I'm sure there's if we sat and thought about it, there's so many more things we could talk about this movie. But I'm just going to go ahead right there and say thank you again for joining me. And if you guys haven't, check out the Agents of M.A.C.E. podcast. To all the Marvel coverage, everybody loves the MCU, so definitely check out their coverage of that. I'm sure you can find it wherever you find your podcasts.
wherever podcasts are heard.
There you go. Check it out, Agents of M.A.C.E. And thank you guys for watching our review today. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. That way you'll get a notification every time we upload a new video. We try to do that every week, a review of the biggest release. So thank you guys for doing that. Thank you to Movie Tavern for letting us see the movies here, shoot the show here. Always thankful to them. But that's it for this week. Be sure to check us out next week. And until then, we'll talk to you later. Bye. Peace. Well, that's a shame. Well, that's a shame. Well, that's a shame.